The Mysterious Benedict Society is one of the rare instances where the book and the film adaptation are of similar quality. But which one is better? Today I'll be talking about some of the differences between the two to determine which one I think comes out on top. I'll start with a smaller difference, and that is that in the book, they reveal that Constance is only 2 years old, or turning 3. They reveal it on her third birthday. I think this was a nice touch to explain Constance's rude behavior, and overall just make her more of a likable character, and make readers understand more why she's on the team. So that's a point for the book. Except it's not. I'm not doing points. The next difference is less of a difference and more of an instance of the book doing a story event much better than the show, and that is Milligan being revealed to be Kate's father. Now, in the show, it feels more subtle and less impactful, but in the book, they go through some of Milligan's backstory with Kate, how he got the name Milligan, being about his last unkept promise to Kate, right before he goes and he gets brain swept. And I think it's just a lot more of an impactful moment with Kate being brought to tears and all that. So, again, the book comes out on top. Man, the book is on. The next difference is that in the show, Sticky gets a bit obsessed with the Whisperer and gets a bit big-headed because of it. So when Sticky is asked what his greatest fear is, he said it's not being wanted. But what Curtin does here by telling him that he is the most compatible with the Whisperer is really make him feel wanted. And I think that makes Curtin much more of a threatening villain because it shows how much he can manipulate someone to make them a totally different person. So I think the show wins that one. So the next few differences are about some characters that got much bigger roles in the show than in the book. One example of this is that in the book, SQ is just one of the executives, but in the show, he's Mr. Curtin's adopted son, which makes sense because he was an orphan, and I guess they're trying to make him more sympathetic that way, but other than that, he's just a character that's taken advantage of to get some information. But I actually think what they did here with SQ was good because it made things more difficult for Rainey, who has to use this innocent person for their mission. Another character that's used in a similar way is Martina. So I think it was a good addition to the show, but it's those end parts with her in the final episode that I wish were done differently. So what happens in the final episode is that Milligan and Kate are surrounded to then be saved by Martina and her tetherball team. But in the book, Kate actually gets beat up by Martina, and that makes it a lot more of a tense and dramatic moment to then be saved by Milligan, who has more of a personal connection to her. So I think if in the show Martina continued to feel betrayed by Kate and not just forgive her, I think it would have made for a much more tense and dramatic moment at the end of the show right there. So another example of a character, or rather characters, being used a lot more in the show than the book is all of the scenes we had with Rhonda, Milligan, number 2, and Mr. Benedict doing their part in the mission. I think this was a nice addition at time, but some things felt a bit pointless, like Milligan getting that letter in episode 3, or Milligan's submarine sinking just for him to swim up to the surface and be totally fine in the next episode. And I guess just most of the Milligan stuff. Another thing that happened in these scenes with the adult is Miss Paramount coming to tell Mr. Benedict that he shouldn't be putting these kids in danger, and convincing him to bring them back. Now, this does happen in the book. Mr. Benedict does send Milligan to bring the kids back, but what led up to that decision isn't shown in the book. Milligan just goes over to the kids and tells them, hey, it's too dangerous for you now. You have to come back. Now, I think something similar like this in the book, with Mr. Benedict really seeing things getting like a lot more dangerous, and then along with what Miss Paramount tells Mr. Benedict, I think that would have been good for the show, just so us as the viewers could feel a little bit more uh on Mr. Benedict's side in this decision, rather than totally feeling like you shouldn't be listening to some random person who has limited understanding of the situation to not put these kids in danger, who would be in more danger if they don't stop his brother. And speaking of his brother, I think Mr. Curtin is something that the show does way better than the book. So in the show, we get some flashbacks, some history with the twins that was completely non-existent in the book. And these flashbacks, along with everyone wanting a very specific blue beret, informs us that Mr. Curtin is a control freak, and his plan is to control everyone's decisions. Now, in the book, Mr. Curtin is more open about his plans, and he pretty much just tells the executives, and in the process, also the reader, that his plan is to make everyone happy. But what he actually wants is for everyone to love him. Now, I think Mr. Curtin's motivations in the show make more sense and make him feel more like a villain. He probably felt as an orphan that no one loved him, so he would have a lot of resentment for the people of the world rather than wanting to feel loved by all of them. Mr. Curtin also has a very different presence in the book versus the show. In the book, he's this crazy guy zooming around on a wheelchair. But in the show, he is a bit weird, but he's a lot calmer. He's the kind of character that puts on a pleasant face, but with his mannerisms and tone, you feel it makes him feel very intimidating, and you feel like he might just snap at any moment, and sometimes he does. Go! In the book, I feel like he kind of already snapped, like he's in a constant state of snappiness. That's not a word. I mean, no one would drive a wheelchair in the way that he is described to drive it in the book. Unless if you're just a bit insane, just a bit mad, or a lot. So now it's for the question. Which do I think is better, the book or the show? And I think I'm going to have to go with the show on this one. I think it adds a lot to the story and to many of the characters. So that's it for this video. Tell me in the comments section down below, do you prefer the book or the show, if you have seen and read those two respectively. So that's it for this video, and thanks for watching.